Chris Eubank Jr.'s drug cheat logic seemingly makes no sense, and his list of potential opponents is absolutely farcical. Chris Eubank Jr. has made some comments recently about who he's going to be fighting next, his potential next 3 opponents. It's been an incredible period for Eubank Jr., winning the Conor Benn fight, making absolutely loads of money, and winning the hearts and minds of the fans in the process. But there is one truth that remains about Chris Eubank Jr., and the reason that I've always struggled to get behind him in his career. We're going to be getting into it in this video. Hello everyone, and welcome back to A Guy Called Henry. Guys, I have to say, I'm disappointed to be making this video, but I'm also not that surprised that I'm doing it. You know, it's the topic of Chris Eubank Jr. and the way he selects his opponents has always been one that has disappointed me. Even though the Conor Benn fight delivered in terms of entertainment, the whole context of the fight, with Benn moving up to middleweight to fight Eubank Jr., Eubank Jr. cutting all the weight, and indeed not pursuing a world title in his own natural weight class has always been something that's bothered me. And indeed, Eubank Jr. has never owned an official middleweight title or super middleweight title. He's had the IBO, but we all know that, you chuck a few quid their way and they'll put it on the line for whatever fight you've paid for, pretty much. So they're not a legitimate governing body. I know he sees that as a legitimate title, but I don't. And I definitely think it's a remarkable thing that he's never actually won an official world title. When you think about the level of talent he has, the level of ability he has, the commercial pulling power he has, so that he can almost certainly command a title shot within 1 or 2 fights' notice, it's something that's always bothered me about Eubank Jr. And, when we talk about Chris Eubank Jr., he's often said over the years that he wants to be a champion, that he wants to challenge himself against the best. But people say things and then they do things that contradict that. And so if actions are a language, what do Chris Eubank Jr.'s actions tell us? What have they always told us? It's that the guy is not interested in becoming a world champion. The guy is interested in making the most amount of money available to him through boxing. I don't have a problem with that, in so much as you can choose what you do with your life. You can choose to play the game the way you want to. But ultimately, what do I want to see as a fan? I want to see fighters trying to become champion, trying to see if they are the best in their weight division. Now, I've heard Eubank say a few things over the last week or so, and I've definitely got some thoughts that I want to give to you guys based on some of these comments. I want to call Eubank out for a little bit of what I deem to be hypocrisy, and I think he's very much playing the game here, and I want to draw your attention to it. So before I get into this video, guys, you know the drill. Please bang a like on this video if you like it. Get your comments in the comments section below. What do you make of Eubank Jr.'s list of potential next opponent? And what do you make of the comments that we're going to be discussing in this video? And just a quick plug, guys. Channel memberships, you all know about them by now. My aim is to get to 2,000 members so we can make this a truly community-funded channel, keep it impartial and objective. So if you'd like to do that, it's £2 a month. You get a few perks with it, and the link is in the description. And also, if you are looking to supercharge your business marketing, I'm looking to take on a few more clients at the moment. I do video production, I do social media content, and I really try to humanize your organization, grow your likability and trust. If you're interested in working with me, there is a link in the description for my website. Please do reach out to me through my email that is also listed there. So to begin this video, we should look at the fighters that Eubank Jr. has called out to fight next. We've been given a sort of a 3-fight plan of sorts, and he's laid it out like this. So the first fight he's looking at is the rematch with Conor Benn. The second fight he's looking at would be a fight against Canelo up at 168 pounds. And the third fight would be a rematch, a long-awaited rematch against his long-time rival, Joe Saunders, who is currently absolutely enormous and not in a good way. So I just want to work through each of these opponents, what the context is around them, what Eubank said about them, and why I feel there's a contradiction in his logic, because the drug cheat thing is something that's come up a lot. A lot of rhetoric from Eubank around drug cheats is part of the reason that I felt so strongly I would like Eubank to win the fight going into that Conor Benn fight. There was a lot that was overcome, but at the end of the day, we have to call a spade, and Eubank's not got it quite right here, although I am very sure that he's playing the game. So the first opponent, Conor Benn, obviously we've just seen a great fight between the two of them, but before anything else is said, I've said this a million times, I'm going to say it again to get my thoughts out there and make it very clear. I do not want to see this fight again unless the rehydration clause is got rid of. I almost have an issue of 160 as well, because I think Eubank has outgrown the weight division. I don't think he can make the weight particularly safely anymore. I think it affects his performance way too much, his hydration levels way too much. But without question, that rehydration clause absolutely has to go in the bin. Now, if that fight is going to be next, as I understand it, the terms were already agreed before the first fight was completed, so they were all signed at the same time. And if it's the same, my suggestion would be this. If there's nothing that can be changed, if there's no renegotiation, I'm Eubank Jr. As I understood it, the way he worded it going into the first fight, he was paid $1 million or £1 million to make the rehydration weight, the check weight on the second day weigh-in. And if that's the case, I think if you're him, you just go, do you know what? I'm not getting my $1 million for the second fight. I'm not going to get that. I'm just going to make it safer for myself, go and win properly this time, have my legs a bit more throughout the fight, box and move, not make it a war, go and win comfortably, and move on with my career. So that has to go away. Now, let's just suppose that he does do that, that the rehydration clause is all good. I think the problem I have with this fight as well is that Conor Benn is a welterweight. I don't really want to see him up at 160 again for another fight, delaying what could be an exciting career at welterweight. You know, for me, get the lad down there as soon as possible, safely make that weight, and get him in the mix in what is about to be quite an exciting division again, I feel. He could be a major player down there. He's 28 years old. Don't waste any more time messing about up at 160. I understand that, you know, he'll probably make more money for that rematch than he maybe will in 3 or 4 fights down at welterweight. So I understand the logic from a financial sense. But at the end of the day, all of this is about financials. And like I said in my intro, I want Eubank Jr. to fight champions. I want Eubank Jr. to try and become a proper world champion before he retires. I don't care if that's what he doesn't want to do. I'm just saying as a fan, that's what I would like to see. Likewise, I want Conor Benn to go down to welterweight and try and pick up a world title. Get in the mix. Make it exciting. That's what I really want. And that's why I'm not too interested in that rematch. Also, just in terms of the occasion in the first fight, it felt like a special moment, a culmination of years of rivalry between two families, completing that sort of trilogy that should have happened with the fathers, with the sons, the special moment where Eubank Sr. arrived and we had the ring walk and everything was just perfect. And to me, it felt like, sentimentally, a one-time occasion, a one-time thing. I don't want to see it again, guys. I'm okay not seeing it again. Of course, I'll watch it if it happens, but it's not my preference. And just to tell you right now, my preference would be that Eubank goes and fights Janibek. If he's going to do anything, I'd like him to fight Janibek at 160. Or possibly Carlos Adames. But I would like to see him at 160 trying to fight a champion, or indeed maybe 168, which leads us into the Canelo conversation. We'll do Canelo and Saunders together because then I can talk about this drug cheat comment. But essentially, let's just do Canelo first because that's the order Eubank gave us it in. He mentioned Canelo and he said that Canelo is someone who's been in my sights for a long time. It's a fight that he's clearly interested in. The problem with Canelo for me, there's a couple of problems with Canelo for me when it comes to Eubank Jr. One is that I believe Canelo's style is just absolutely perfect to beat Eubank Jr. So I don't see it as a winnable fight for Eubank. Because Canelo has slowed a lot, it's definitely closer than it would have been, but Eubank's also slowed. He's not the fighter he once was. If this was a prime Eubank against this version of Canelo, I would be genuinely intrigued. But with this version of Eubank, where he looks like he's got much less of a gas tank, he looks like his punch resistance has gone a little bit, based on the Liam Smith fight, I should say. To be honest with you, I just don't see that fight being a particularly competitive one, but I'm sure Canelo would take it, and I'd definitely watch it. It'd be a great build-up. It'd be interesting. And at the end of the day, Canelo is a unified champion at 168, so I can't really criticize Eubank for going for a unified champion in a weight division that he has competed in the past. The real issue with Canelo is that he's tied up for the next year. I mean, we've just seen him beat Skull. He's unified the division again, and now he's got this fight with Crawford, which has been announced in September. So if you're Eubank, you're waiting until next year for that fight. So the fact that the Conor Benn fight has already been agreed for September makes you think he's probably going to do that fight. He's probably going to win again, and then he'll probably look to do Canelo next year. It kind of makes sense. But let's talk about Billy Joe Saunders, and then we'll talk about these drug cheat comments. Eubank mentioned Billy Joe Saunders, and he sort of said, you know, Saunders is someone that I genuinely dislike. He said, I don't dislike anyone really, but you know I really don't like him. He said he's a bad human being, he's a lowlife, and he clearly has a great degree of disdain towards Billy Joe Saunders, and I can understand why. That Billy Joe Saunders has done some pretty abhorrent stuff throughout his life. We've seen it on camera. He's not an ideal human being. And I always hoped it was just for the cameras, but then you see him do stuff and you're just like, that is not all right. That is really not all right. And I think the guy just really lacks boundaries. And he's not for me in terms of his character. He can be amusing, like everyone can. He can be a funny guy, but there's just stuff he's done that I just can't really tolerate. At the same time, an undeniably gifted fighter, a very, very good fighter. He's arguably he is one of Canelo's best wins, in my opinion. And it was a shame he retired when he did, or stopped when he did, because it's been 4 years since we lost someone in the ring, and he was in there in an extremely competitive fight against Canelo. He obviously got stopped in the end. But the reality is that Billy Joe Saunders is one of the top fighters in the world when he was, fit and firing. And where he is right now, we've seen the images of him. He is morbidly obese. He is massively overweight. And whether or not he can actually come back and make a career of boxing still remains to be seen. I think it'll be extremely challenging for him, extremely difficult to blow up that much weight. He says he's come out this week. He's talking about coming back at light heavyweight. That's been confirmed that he's going to try and come back at light heavyweight, which is just absolute madness. But the guy undoubtedly talented, and he would be an amazing addition in terms of his ability to the world boxing scene. He's a character that would help the boxing scene right now. He's a talent that would help the boxing scene right now if he's anything close to what he used to be, which I think is up for debate. So, these are three opponents that all have an asterisk against them that Eubank's called out for his next fight, which is disappointing given the high he's on. But what else do I expect, really? Like I said, his priority is making money. His priority is getting the most money he can for the easiest fight possible in his next fight. It's just the way that Eubank operates. And I just have to accept as a fan that I'm probably never going to see him in a proper world title fight unless it's against a massive name like a Canelo, for example. And at 160, there really aren't any names, so I guess fair enough. But there was one thing that Eubank drew attention to while he was talking about these names, that I want to discuss, and it's the drug cheat thing. So he talks about Conor Benn, and he talks about how, he felt this strong sense of obligation to teach Conor Benn a lesson, to show the public that you can't be a cheat, that it's unacceptable. And it was in his Diary of a CEO interview, which, by the way, was absolutely incredible. It made me like Eubank even more, to be honest with you. I really do like Eubank at this point, but I'm also not going to ignore when there's things I see that are inconsistencies or not quite right, and that's what we've got here. And he talked about, egging Conor Benn and saying that it will last forever now. He will always be known as a drug cheat. I did things that will make sure he's always known as a drug cheat. And part of his mission was to defeat the drug cheat, basically. And then he went on to talk about Billy Joe Saunders, and he said, Billy Joe Saunders, he's another drug cheat, another guy who's failed drug tests that I'd love to get in the ring with again. And he also said that he felt that, he actually claimed that many people said that they thought he beat Saunders in that fight. Look, it was a close fight in that it was a fight of two halves, but it was very clear to me that Billy Joe Saunders won that fight. And at the time, I remember watching it, I really wanted Eubank to win that fight, but he didn't. He did not win that fight, and I don't think anybody would really claim that he did, even though he came on strong in the end. It was disappointing that the rematch never happened when they were both in their primes, and getting it now, there's so many things that you could say will make it different. Billy Joe Saunders' size for one, what Eubank's got left, etc., etc. But obviously, he drew attention to the fact that Billy Joe Saunders in the past has also failed a drugs test. So he called out both of those guys, but he conveniently did not afford Canelo the same courtesy. Canelo obviously failed a test for clenbuterol years ago. I think it was after the first Triple G fight. I can't quite remember when it was, but people were calling him Canelo for ages. It was a whole thing. And it's something that's easily forgotten. I also must admit, sometimes I forget that Canelo failed that test. And it's difficult in boxing, honestly, to keep the same energy for everybody. And that's what I want to talk about here. It seems like it's warped logic from Eubank Jr. It seems like it's a convenient omission. And that's pretty much exactly what it is. It's a convenient omission. He knows full well that Canelo's failed a drug test before, but he's left it out because at the end of the day, he wants that fight. And with the other two, they both need Eubank Jr. to make the maximum amount of money they can. But Eubank Jr. needs Canelo if he's going to get that money, because at the end of the day, Canelo does not need Chris Eubank Jr. And so if he starts calling him a drug cheat before the fight's even made, he's not going to get that fight. So this is Eubank Jr. playing politics. He knows who he can and cannot say things about, and he can't say that about Canelo. He cannot keep the same energy for Canelo that he's kept for Benn and he's kept for Billy Joe Saunders. And yes, it is hypocritical, but also the guy's looking out for his own interests. So I kind of understand it, but it's also a bit disappointing because you then can't really read too much into this supposed mission to vanquish the drug cheats and teach people a lesson about drug cheats when, you're calling out Canelo who's won and you just don't even mention that he has failed a test previously. So it makes me lean more towards the belief that that's more of a marketing strategy from Eubank Jr., that he's sort of creating this narrative. And whilst it's not untrue, he probably doesn't really believe in it as much as we think he does, given the fact that, again, it's been omitted there. And look, at the end of the day, maybe he does get Canelo in the ring and maybe it's fight week, and then maybe he decides to say something just before the fight, and then I kind of get it. He's balanced out. It's like, yeah, I'm going to call him out, but I'll do it in the moment where I know I've got him in the ring. I know the fight is secure. But at this stage, I understand why he's done what he's done. I'm going to be the one that says, yeah, by the way, he also failed one, just so you all know. You know what I mean? But it's a weird thing. It really is a weird thing in boxing that we kind of have to sometimes stop talking about failed tests, because otherwise we'll have no great champions left to talk about, because so many fighters do fail tests. So many fighters probably are on stuff that if we just keep bringing it up every time, then we might have no top level fighters left. I mean, it's that rife in the sport, and there's that many fighters that have had, adverse findings. I mean, even Beterbiev's had adverse findings before, and most of us don't really know enough about how much was in the body and all that sort of thing to know whether or not it was likely to have been them cheating or just something naturally occurring or a tainted supplement. It's such a messy, confusing area in the sport that I just try to stay away from it as much as I can. But equally, if someone else is calling something out, I'm gonna call you up if you pull you up on an inconsistency for sure. Overall, I guess what I want to say is this. I think Eubank Jr.'s lack of desire to go for world champions in 160, 168, fine, he's going for Canelo, but let's say, a lesser known fighter, like a Caleb Plant, for example, was champion at 168. I don't think Eubank Jr. is bothering with it. And I think this has always been my problem with the guy, is that I always wanted to see him just fight the best at his weight and see how good he actually was. And he's always just gone for the highest paydays. And this is probably the thing that's really stopped me being more of a fan before now. Because I really did warm to him during the whole Benn build up, the way the fight went, the way he spoke afterwards, everything about it really made me like him more. But it's always been slightly tainted for me in just that what I want as a fan is I want to see him in there with the biggest challenges in the various weight classes. And yes, Canelo would be a massive challenge, so fair enough. But, the fact that we might do the Benn rematch and the calling out of Billy Joe Saunders, who's an absolute state right now, it's just kind of like, yeah, I get you're only in it for the money, really, but I don't have to like that. So that's kind of how I feel about it. But guys, let me know what you think in the comment section below. Do you think I'm being too harsh on Eubank? Do you think I'm being fair? How do you feel about all the comments? Who would you like to see him fight next? But bang a like on the video. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. We're so close to 10K now. Hope you've all enjoyed this one, guys. And as I always say, On to the next one.